What's up guys, FLOWSHIZZLE here, and this is your Astra main's guide to Ascent. Now for my credentials, I'm currently Immortal 3 about 270 RR as of the time of making this video, but I did peak Radiant 98. Honestly, a part of that is just due to me not playing that much. I play 3 times a week, so in the case that you're trying to watch it live, follow me on Twitch to catch every game that I do play. And now onto the guide. Let's start by saying that Ascent is a perfect map for Astra. Astra has a ton of utility and has the ability to consecutively re-smoke at a really short timer. She can spread her utility on the attack very easily to help gain map control, and on the defense you can shift her stars around, making Ascent one of my favorite maps to play as Astra. So on the defense, what side should you be playing? Well, Astra is well known for being able to stop pretty much any rush, but in general, A site is a really solid choice for Astra, as she can split up her stars between A and Cat. Now, she's also very good at holding the B site, but sometimes it is a little bit of overkill, as a B split through mid is not nearly as common as a Cat split with A. So let's start off with star defaults. I went over this in my Astra main's guide to Astra, but the default is 2 for A, 1 mid, and 2 for B. This way you can do smokes, and then the second is for a pull. Likewise on the other site, and then this mid one is kind of optional. You can put it on Cat. It doesn't need to be mid. Usually you'll change this up depending on what the attackers are doing. Now let's talk about site holds. So the normal 2 are always going to be the same, but as for the third star, you can either put it somewhere here, like Jenny, or front dice. This is to stop the jet dash, or you could just put it somewhere like switch, as this is a common place attackers will push toward right after they get out of the choke point to try to close the lever and close the door. If you've been losing sight a lot to jet dashes or ray satchels as they're just flying at you, sometimes it's worth putting another star here, and you can even go as far as 4 stars. But this is a little excessive. That way you smoke, you pull, and when the jet dash is in, you can actually pop this as a smoke so that you can cross into it, hold for any players pushing in. And this is like kind of just causing a lot of chaos, because as attackers are trying to clear the site, it's very hard for them to kill you safely, and pushing into the smoke a lot of the times just guarantees you a free kill. It also allows you to cross toward generator and gives you more positions to play rather than being stuck behind dice or stuck behind Jenny or stuck behind hell. Like, you see how this connects the points and makes you have like more cover overall. This is the aggro A hold, and essentially here you're just going to want to make sure you have a star on the one way, and you can have a second star by the orb. You pop your one way, and this makes it very, very hard for any attackers to really want to push through this, because not only are they in a one way where they see absolutely nothing, you can't even push toward the orb because it's kind of dangerous when you can just pull them. So you can play this kind of corner and just spam if they're running out, but in the case that the flash comes through under, you can even just back away, pull, wait for the flash to disappear, and then you can swing out after that. This is super good at delaying any A hits, and especially if they're late, or especially if you just need to get early info, this is perfect, because you're going to spot them all the way down there. You have a relatively safe exit, and if they never come here, you can always calm to your teammates. I don't see anything A main. As for the retake, you're going to do the same 2 stars here, but you're going to want to commit 1 to holding Cat. The reason is, if you're giving the A site, you can't also give Cat, otherwise you've given the attackers way too much space. Having a star here allows you to play into tree, or allows you to double up with a buddy, someone one here, one here. That way, if they're coming out A, you can smoke, you can pull, you can do all this stuff. You can spam through the normal smoke that comes down there, or you can hold for the Cat push, jiggling ever so often, and if they try to push through, you can also do the same thing. You can pull, and you and your teammate can fight Cat. Essentially, what you want to do is isolate what you're losing. So here, if you have Cat, then all you're isolating is that they have the A site. Your teammates will rotate from the B side to be able to help you retake, and essentially you've limited the amount of space that the attackers have taken. Here are some variations that you can change depending on the agents that are on your team. Killjoy is a great example. Having this smoke is always perfect. It covers the choke. But what you can also do is combo with your Killjoy. If your Killjoy is playing B, the normal 2 mollies or something like lane, you can put a star right on this box behind the wall. This way, the attackers don't see it at all. And yet, when you're pushing up lane, you still get pulled by it. So this way you combo with your Killjoy, and you get a bunch of free easy kills. This also works for the A site. And this is the perfect one, is toward door. So instead of pulling at the beginning, if you want to play a little bit slower and you want to play a little bit safer and you have a Killjoy with you, you can easily just put 1 by the lever, as like I said before, everyone usually rushes to close the door. And if they're running toward it and there are Killjoy mollies right here and here, which is a very common Killjoy setup, a pull will almost guarantee the kill. And it ensures that the door doesn't get closed. 2 other smokes that you should just do sometimes depending on your team is throwing a tile smoke.
Got blocking vision.
This is because mid is a lot of the time just given to the attackers. By throwing a tile smoke, it makes the attackers feel like, oh, maybe you're aggressing mid, and maybe force some utility out that doesn't really need to be. Sometimes throwing this smoke baits utility, and if your teammates want to push up and take mid control, this is also a really great way. Top mid is also great, but look at this smoke. You'll realize that you have to get it kind of perfect to be able to cover both sides, as Astra smokes are smaller than most other controller agents, so you really need to place it like almost perfectly. I use this kind of ledge as an indication, and this way it blocks both sides, but keep in mind they can still jump spot and all that stuff. So you can also use this to smoke out top mid. On the defense, I'm usually put to solo A, as I feel relatively comfortable doing so. Having these two, I try to hold back on popping my smoke for as long as possible until I absolutely feel necessary. And one way I like to do this is by jump spotting. There is this really awesome place at the corner of hell where you could just bang your head against the ceiling, and essentially it doesn't give them a lot of time to spot you or shoot you. Unlike here, where if you jump, you have a lot of air time. Banging your head against the ceiling here means that it's very hard to just headshot you, and you can just jump spot to see when they cross. And if they're crossing, then I'll drop the smoke, and then I can wait and wait it out. And then I could drop more smokes if I need to chain it up. This way you're from a safe angle. You can't get darted from here, and you get early info on whether they're actually outside of A main or not without risking your life. If I'm doing something like this, I'll like to smoke it out, and if I could cross toward wine, I will. I like to double up with a jet or something like that who can get out. They'll hug the wall, I'll play the corner, try to bait for my jet. That way, if they swing out, I get a few tags in, jet gets the kill, they dash out, or if I get the kill, you know, we can hold this relatively easy with a pull. One huge thing is that when you're playing for site hold, be careful and watch this area of the map, because that is where Sova darts come from. Sova darts ruin all site holds, because if they know where you are, the site becomes so much easier to take. Usually the common spots for darting are here, here, and sometimes here. Make sure you see the dart if you're looking up, and that way you can easily know where you're supposed to be looking to break it instantly before it even scans once. This is a huge thing to any site hold, so please remember this. When playing retake, you're usually doubling up with your teammate. So usually one is here and maybe somewhere is here. This way you can kind of help if they're pushing through. You guys both have a crossfire for this area. You can play close right here. As long as you have some sort of like alarm bot or turret watching A main, you can kind of just watch from here. If this player is spotting, you don't even need to look at. You can just watch here. And then when he spots him, then you can turn to look and you can pull if need be. Double swing, you guys get an early kill. The idea is not to try to hold this, but the idea is to try to hold everything else. If you can, you will get lucky on an A site hold on a retake. You smoke this off, they're probably gonna smoke this off. What you're gonna want to do is pull, and you're just gonna spam some shots out. See if you get a lucky kill. Remember, Fragile does double the damage, so you realistically only need to hit 2 bullets on a Vandal after that. So just throw out some lucky shots. Sometimes you get lucky. Now for the star setups for the attack side and how you should default. The normal two are always going to be mid and cat. The cat one is usually the more important one, as that's where operators love to peek, and smoking this makes it much easier to take mid. Next is if you have a Sova that is smart enough to continually dart mid to make sure that there is no aggression mid, then you don't need to star this deep. But in the case that you don't, smoking like this is a lot safer than making sure that nobody is like here, a Reyna or a Jet, who's gonna op you as you're crossing tiles, and then you get an early pick. But if you do have a Sova like this, you can actually smoke deeper, as deep if you want to go shallow here, but you can also go as deep as there. Next is if there is constant aggression, make sure you use a pull, most likely toward A main. If you do this consecutively, you can kind of leave the A side of the map early round and just pull right off the bat. The reason I'm saying this is because if you don't put presence there and the defenders decide to get aggro, like in the aggro A main hold I stated earlier, then you wouldn't really have any pressure. By throwing a star there, you can at least make sure that any defenders are going to need to take some risk to be able to get any information. So throwing that star there is actually pretty good. You could also do it for B main. If you throw it more on the outside of the main, like toward this rather than over here, you kind of forced any defenders that are hugging the barrier to push forward rather than fall back. And if you're rushing, sometimes this gets you the free entry kill. Now let's talk about playstyle and how you should be playing out these rounds. One, you should be deciding which site you really want to be defaulting toward. Ascent has the benefit of having 2 essentially free orbs on the attack side. It's one, and then the B main one. They're relatively easy to get, and with something like a pull here right off the rip, makes it really hard for any defenders to really stop you, as you could just grab it, and by the time the pull fades, you already have the orb. The same thing as with the B site one. You could just grab it or funnel it toward another agent that has a better ult. Some usual ones are like Phoenix, Sova, or whatever agent there is. Next is you're going to want to take mid control or at least deny some sort of information. Usually Cat is the best one because Cat has the most safe entrance for the defenders to peek into mid. Rather than here, it's a little more risky because they can get shot and they can't really get out. You can easily back out if you're Cat. Then you're going to want to try to help your team take space. So an easy one is to throw stars in certain places that your teammates are going to need to clear. So a common one, it would be like right here because defenders like pushing into these cubbies. And by throwing a star like somewhere here, you kind of clear the right side and help your teammates get up here safely and not need to check this 50-50 angle. Make sure you time your smokes depending on how far your teammates are up. If your teammates are deep, then you're going to want to throw a deeper smoke. But if your teammates are just trying to cross mid, then maybe you want to throw a more shallow smoke. So let's talk about how to properly execute on the B site. Normal smokes are 1 and 2, and then you're going to want 1 for stairs. So it's going to be smoke, smoke, pull, and then you're going to go up lane or basically get on site as fast as you can. This is going to vary dependent if you're playing against a Killjoy or whatever, right? But the idea is that you want to get to backside as soon as possible because remember, Astra smokes last only 15 seconds. One of the shortest smokes in the game. Getting onto site into a safe spot means that about the time where you smoke and you come out and you get back here is relatively around the same time where your smokes will fade. Getting to somewhere safe so you can re-smoke so your teammates can continue to hold the site is really important. Now, how to execute on the A site. It's usually 1 for tree, and then you're going to try to line up your smoke with the ledge right here. And then you're going to smoke, and your last one will be a pull, usually dice. And this should give you a relatively an easy take. Remember, defenders love to swing through heaven. So make sure you're wary of that. And also make sure you try to get this door closed as soon as possible. A site isn't as bad as rushing to re-smoke because if you think about it, the rush distance from here to here is not nearly as far as from B main to back boat. So let's talk about some defensive Astra walls. Now, in general, retake walls are the way to go. They're guaranteed. You let them plant the spike. You work off your team. They're ready, mentally prepared because you can tell them, I have wall. We're just going to play off the wall, and they can play accordingly. But you can use it to hold site sometimes. A common one is just a wall the site off. This also works perfectly for retakes, but if you can time this perfectly before they're on site, then you can throw up this wall and you can kind of hug the side, and you have this entire lane. Where if they're running through, you can shoot them from the side of the head, and it's pretty hard for an attacker to really expect this.
They smoked me. They smoked A.
Well divided.
Closing door.
30 seconds left.
We can get outside. We can get outside. Dead.
One enemy remaining.
Last three.
Spike down
Jumping
A.
up, jumping up.
Time.
I know that you can knife through the wall, but because of this box, it kind of throws off the angle. And if you wall off the box, they sometimes will forget a box exists here and probably wouldn't knife here anyway. It still hasn't been common enough that I think you should really think around it. This wall also has a double purpose, which allows your teammates heaven to flood out and help you on site. Even if your teammates are smoked out, your defending teammates will likely still run through if they know this wall is here because they can't get shot from A main. So throwing this wall is super good at not only holding the site, but allowing your teammates to flood in. This is also a pretty solid retake wall because the default plant is here. With the wall going up, a lot of attackers like to play off site in the corners right here. And by throwing this wall up, no one can play any of the far ranges and has to push up and a lot of times through the wall, which actually benefits you. On the attack side, you're going to try to wall off back boat, as this will make the retake significantly easier. But if you're lucky enough to have a Killjoy with an ultimate, you can actually do something like this.
Well divided. My ult's ready.
The Killjoy will plant ult here, and this covers the entirety of site. Now the attackers on site will be forced to push through your Astra wall to try to break the Killjoy ult, and they won't be able to spam it through the boathouse. Places you should always throw stars in is toward the middle, as attackers love to play back boathouse in between so they can pivot around the two doorways, or behind default. These are relatively easier to clear than something like this, so I would recommend prioritizing this and back there. Attacking Astra walls. The simple one is something like this.
Well divided. For
B site, this cuts off market and it cuts off CT, allows you to easily run up. They can hide in this corner, but it doesn't really help them. As long as you have players watching the wall, this is pretty solid. Because essentially you haven't used any stars for smokes, you can actually even place one like right here or something like that to pull anyone who's close to the wall trying to like hide behind it. A site, there is this wall,
Well divided.
and this isn't the worst wall, but it definitely isn't really great. This allows you to essentially get a free door close, which is kind of nice, but it leaves a huge gap generator where you can't, it's actually very, very hard to clear. I generally don't recommend using this wall because of this one issue. For A site, I would just normally recommend maybe walling off all of heaven like this, or walling off just door like this, and then comboing with a smoke for one or the other. There is a wall you could throw to just get the plant down, and essentially you wall from here, the edge of the door, and you wall off a corner of the site like this.
Well divided.
And basically this allows you to get onto site pretty much for free. One person will go to close the door, and you're just gonna plant in this tiny corner right here. Your teammates will play in A main and just spam for the spike. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Now for my favorite attack astral wall. It's walling from here all the way to B CT right over there.
Well divided.
And what you're gonna see is that it's a double flake wall. It walls all of A heaven, but it also walls CT at B. So essentially you are able to run any strat you need. If you want to run an A split, one smoke is all you need, as heaven is going to be walled off.
Good blocking vision.
If you want to rush A, one smoke is all you need. You want to run mid to B?
Obscuring vision.
Guess what? One smoke. And if you want to rush B, it is the same. The idea is that this wall makes it very hard to read where exactly you're going. Just tossing it denies a lot of information, and it works so you can pivot toward any of the sites. Now here are some Astra tips and tricks. This one I like to call Rat Astra, and I do this all the time on eco rounds. I'll essentially just buy a shorty, and I know this doesn't seem like a smart idea to run up short A with a shorty, but the idea is that not many players play bottom mid. So what you're gonna do is right off the barrier drop, you have a star right here, and you're gonna just kind of walk up with your shorty. You're gambling, no one is here. You're gonna pull back your star when you get in the range, and then you're just gonna sit in it, wait for a little bit. The reason why this is so strong, let me kind of show you what happens, is you saw that I walked out of the smoke as it dropped, right? So that means any cat player would see this.
Taking that back.
A lot of the times, this entices them to play aggro and get close to the smoke, or even just cross. All you need to do is make sure that in this close area, you get close enough, and you can usually sometimes just one-shot them. You can also do the same thing for cat peeks. Essentially, if you have an opera posted or something like that, you pull back the star. They think that it's going to be safe because you smoked it out, but in reality, the smoke disappears, and then you get a free kill. You can alternate through doing that through mid. You can smoke cat and then pull back the mid one. Or you could smoke mid and pull back the cat one. Mix it up, you will sometimes just catch people off guard. Next is that sometimes on the rotate to A, you're gonna want to jump spot mid like this. This way you can see if anyone's pushing up toward market, or if anything is deep mid. This just in general is a really safe way. Just make sure you don't do this too many times in a row. Obviously, if you're gonna jump here multiple times, they're gonna be positioned for you. They're gonna have their crosshair on you. Just make sure if you want to do this, sometimes you can spot if they're coming out. And this is just a really good way of getting free info. And the last thing I want to mention is remember that the default plant for generator is really close to being off site. Meaning that if you have a pull like right here, and they try to plant, they're gonna get pulled off site and stop the plant. Now in terms of star management, where should you be pulling your stars away first? Now this is a rule of thumb. If there is more noise on your site, or if you're reading the round as you think it's going to be your site, then pull stars away from the other site to move toward yours. Mid is usually a pretty safe star to pull back, as mid is usually easy to give as a defender. If you are really running low on stars, then you're gonna wanna think about getting information. Changing yourself from a defensive position to getting more aggro will guarantee that you feel more comfortable stacking one of the sites than the others. This is a good way to make sure that you win rounds, because if you have more utility toward the site that they're going towards, you're gonna have an easier time. Playing something like this and making sure it's like, hey, I don't see anything A, I'm gonna make sure I stack more toward B. Oh, even though I have only 2 stars, now I don't need to waste anything here. And if they come A, I could just leave and play retake. Also, if you can, keep 1 star on flex. This means that you keep it on your belt, you don't use it, you don't place it down early in the round. You just have it so that in the case a round goes a certain way, you place it toward where you need it. That way you don't have to wait for that cooldown for recalling the star, and you're able to change up your playstyle proactively. And there you go. I hope you enjoyed this guide to Ascent. This is everything that I think about and how I play Ascent to a Radiant level. If you enjoy the guide, please drop a like and subscribe. It really does help support the channel. And if you want to watch me play live, I stream on Twitch 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, as well as post daily on TikTok. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.